Okay, so Monica and I are big-time anime fans. We have been for about a decade, maybe longer. We are both ladies, and we collaborated together when creating the information in this channel. We both studied sociology at UC Davis. I studied specifically human development, psychology, and she studied cultural anthropology with a focus in East Asian culture. So if I had any questions about Japan or the culture therein, I asked her. So in this panel, we're going to talk about sex, gender, feminism very briefly, and culture. So just a word of warning. Is there anyone here under 13 years of age? No? Okay, good. Wait, okay. We are going to talk about grown-up stuff, so if anytime you want to leave, that would be okay. We talk about it in a relaxed kind of way, and I do believe that young people, who are coming into their own should be exposed to this kind of thing in a mature kind of setting. So if you do want to leave, that's fine with me. I'm okay. We're going to talk about kind of the story crafting that goes on behind the scenes in anime and manga, and we are not going to dislike men for liking food. That's totally okay. You're allowed. We'll talk more about fan service later in the panel. You'll like my opinion on it, I hope. So there's a difference between biological sex and gender. So your biological sex is pretty much your X chromosome and whatever physically happened before you were born. So there's female, which is 2 X chromosomes, male, which is XY. Intersex is where there is some kind of mixed signal, or you have too few or too many chromosomes. You could be not sensitive to the androgens, which is the signal that your body gets that you should grow into a male. So you could have the XY chromosome, but you could develop a female body. And now the Intersex Society of America estimates that between 1 in 1,500 and 1 in 2,000 births has ambiguous genitalia. So that means that when the baby's born, it's not immediately apparent whether or not it's a boy or a girl. So this leads to gender, which is something that society made up in order to kind of make sense of our physical body. In America, we recognize 2 genders, men and women. The Native Americans recognize 3 genders, and they call the third one a two-spirit. So it was like they had both the male and the female spirit inside them. And transgender, which is a big catch-all term, is gaining recognition in the States, and in the anime community there seems to be an awful lot of transgender or cross-dressing all over the place. So by a show of hands, if you feel brave, who has ever cross-dressed? Like you dress girl dressing as a guy, guy dressing as a guy. Yeah, I dressed as Honey Senpai, that counts. The book technically. So, at an anime con, there are tons of guys dressed like girls, there are tons of girls dressed like guys, and it's all just social construct. So, part of your gender identity comes from whatever society you're living in at the time. So, this can include the way that you dress yourself, how you behave, the way you talk. In Japan, if you want to refer to yourself, like you want to say the word I, there are many different ways to say that word. So watashi is the most neutral, and if you were a very effeminate girl, you would say atashi, which is a very gentle way of referring to yourself. If you want to be a strong guy, do you know what you would say? Ore, exactly. Can you imagine the kind of social statement a woman would make if she were living in Japan and she called herself Ore? Whoa, don't mess with her. Watch out. So my understanding of bofu is that it depends on the situation. If are in like not like a subservient kind of position, so like you're talking about something to someone who's superior to you, you could refer to yourself as Goku, which shows like you're better than me, lower than you. It also is a term boys tend to use way more often than girls, and then I can't really speak confidently beyond that. So there are lots of different ways that's just language. So an example of the way that you would reflect your gender in your dress would be to wear pink. If you are in America, that is a very feminine color. It used to be that girls would wear blue and boys would wear pink because red was the color of fire and awesome. But it could, be too much for the ladies of court. They might faint. So tone it down. Wear some pink. And then women would wear blue because it was the color of water, which was a very feminine element. So a little bit of history. Now it's like backwards. Okay, so believe it or not, American and Japanese cultures are different. Shock, I know. America tends to value independence, and Japan tends to value teamwork. Yes, and so if that's reflected in our entertainment, which is kind of a part of what anime and manga are. And in America, you tend to see, like, if you have a strong female character in an American setting, she's usually independent, answers to nobody, thinks on her own. But in a Japanese form of entertainment, a strong female character might be one who works really well with the team, or she's got that one skill that nobody else has, but she really helps out, with that skill when push comes to shove. So, for contrast, you can think of like cowgirls in the States, and the Yamato-Matsushiko, if I said that right, which is the flower of Japanese womanhood. That's an old, archetype, and she's usually a member of the family or the clan. If you've ever seen a costume drama, she's the one who's she seems very subservient. She'll do anything for her husband, anything for her family or her clan. And we might look at that and say, oh, look at her, she's so enslaved by the culture. Really, that's a strong woman, and it just depends on the culture and where you're looking. And it's kind of easy for us with our modern sensibility to judge these people from far away and long ago. So just, context makes a difference. So a real quick rundown on feminism. It's a very complex school of thought, has a lot of rich history. Modern feminism really boils down to having equal rights for men and women. That's basically it. Not too much more than that. It also covers a lot of the men's movement, which is it's a social movement where we want to encourage men to do feminine things like have emotions, or have them in a healthy sense. And if a guy wants to go get a facial, go ahead. If you want to go, get your nails done because then they look nice because they look like a man, go ahead. It's okay. That's the men's movement, and feminism has to be in favor of that. A really quick word on the feminism that you see on the internet. That's crazy feminism. Okay. Feminism that you see in the classroom or in a book tends to be more learned, a little more patient. On the internet, you tend to make snap judgments, and oh, you're a feminazi, you're a sexist. Try to, what you think of feminism from the internet, forget that. That's just crazy. So, feminism is not blaming men for all of the problems. It's really, at least modern feminism has much more of a can-do, work-together attitude. The vast majority of men are not sexist, and they really get angry and upset if you call them that. So there are some things that people do that can't be interpreted as sexist, but whether or not, in their heart of hearts they actually are, that's a whole other thing. So try not to blame. That's not what we want to do. I take a drink of water. So the question is, do people really have a hard time with feminism? So speaking from my own, position, and what just personally what I've observed on the internet, is that people really do have a hard time. A lot of men interpret it as like an attack, and that somehow they have to give up their rights so that women can have it instead. And it can be, the white, straight male in America, he can be in kind of a cushy position and can often feel like he's being attacked on all sides for being a hater, when most of the time, he probably isn't, I think that's where a lot of the antagonism comes from. Was there a question in the back? Yeah? Could you say that again super loud? Does it have to relate to what I've been talking about? It does. Keeping this in mind as we go forward in the panel, I think will help you, especially when we get to the part about writing, like actual sitting down and story crafting for female characters. Let's move on. Where does anime come from? When a mommy anime and a daddy anime love each other very much. No, it comes from artists, it comes from authors, and these people, they all have opinions, they all have thoughts, they have something that they want to convey. Sometimes they convey things that they aren't even aware of themselves. Case in point would be Stephanie Meyer, who wrote Twilight. A lot of people read it. Hang on a second, guys. A lot of people read it and they said, wow, Edward is really showing some abusive behavior towards Bella. And Stephanie Meyer said, I don't know what you're talking about. So we see through her fiction and through her response that she thinks something is normal, whereas a lot of other people probably don't. So keep that in mind, especially if you are interested in writing or drawing your own manga. Listen to feedback and take it with a grain of salt. But if someone really sits down and gives you a thoughtful criticism, really think about it. Think about your worldview and theirs. Okay. So let's talk about the traits of good characters. A good character is one who has motivation, usually motivation that's pretty clear, and they tend to have a rich personality. They add something to the group. Other members of the group maybe conflict or get along really well with them. A really good test to see whether or not you have a good character is the Mr. Plinkius litmus test. So who knows? Yay! Who knows what red letter media is? Yay! All the cool people do. No, you guys are all cool. So here's the test. So we describe the character without saying what they look like, what kind of clothes they wear, what their job is, or what they do in the story. So let's try this right now. I'm going to pick a character that we all know pretty well. We're going to use this test on Naruto. So, audience, shout out some words that describe Naruto without saying what he looks like. Okay. Hold on.
Stubborn.
Yes, sir. Hot-headed. You in the back. Scary and outrageous. Is that what you said? Oh, at first he was scared, but then he became courageous. Yes, so that's character growth. That's a good thing. So you're in front. Goal-oriented. Persistent. Yes. Yep. Optimistic. Definitely. Yeah? Yes. Yeah, you're right. Loyal, definitely.
Orange jacket.
So, those were all good words to describe Naruto, so he's a pretty good character. If any of you had said orange jacket, you would have been wrong. Okay, so a good female character is basically a good character who just happens to be female. And gentlemen, if you are writers and you find because it is full-time writing for female characters, pretend they're male. Just omit all that like machismo stuff and just pretend that they're another guy, and you'll be okay. For a real good female character, her gender is not her defining feature. So for this, a good rule of thumb, it's not always perfect, but we have the Bechtel test, which is the work contains two women who talk to each other about something other than sin. This is particularly helpful if the author or the main writer is male, because this shows that this person can really think about women as being something more than just women, being something that I desire, that I want to get my hands on, and so it must be thinking about men, especially being the writer. It really, passing this test is a good indicator. It's not perfect. Like if you have one female protagonist, and that's it, like there's a world of no men, then you're going to fail the test. But it's a good barometer, definitely. So let's talk about feminine and masculine traits. So yay, extra credits. Woohoo! Okay. So the people over at Extra Credits talked about gender, and they said that a good female character is one who embraces certain cultural expectations of what it's like to be a woman and rejects others. And the reasons for why she embraces and rejects are what makes her a good character. So for me, I embrace the cultural expectation of women wearing pink. I'm cool with that. And I reject that men should have to hold open doors for women. I think whoever gets to the door first should hold open the door. Or if you've got like a ton of junk in your hand, then it's kind of a nice thing for someone, I held open the door for you earlier, didn't I? Or did you feel offended? Oh, good, okay. Not offended, excellent. And so those are my reasonings, and that's what makes me a real person. So if you can do this with your own female characters, you can kind of create a real rich human being, not just necessarily a woman. So let's have some audience participation and talk about what feminine or masculine traits that you guys embrace. So guys, girls, everybody who wants to contribute, now's the time. So let's raise our hand right now. It was a little crazy last time. Anyone want to share? Yeah. You hate it when your boyfriend constantly buys things for you. Yeah, he'll pay for the meal. You're like, why can't I pay for it once in a while? Yeah. Okay. So have you heard the term going Dutch? Yeah, which is where the lady pays for her portion of the meal and the gentleman pays for his portion. How about some masculine traits that you guys or girls embrace? Yeah.
Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. So if there's a leak in the house, gosh darn it, I'm going to fix it, right? All right. Yeah? You want to be really strong. Yes. Make the female characters beautiful or cute. We do value pretty girls. We do. Yeah? Definitely. So just to repeat, her comment was that leadership is seen as a masculine trait, and I wish I had the statistics on me, but the vast majority of CEOs are men. Very few women CEOs. So very good. Yeah, one more. Yeah, like the team player. more than the leader. That could be because being a leader can be risky, and men tend to take riskier. They're more likely to take riskier activities or behaviors than women are. Fun fact, you know. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, historically, doing housework and taking care of kids has been feminine, but that's mostly a recent invention, like after the Industrial Revolution, that really became the norm for women to stay home. Before, it was whatever parent was around at the time. Before the Industrial Revolution, men and women prepare the baby kind of equally. Victorian era, women prepare the baby, yeah. Oh no, we have contention. Men brought up food. Women brought nice food. They went out and they did gathering, but okay. I'm super excited that we have this dialogue going on. But we're gonna move on, okay? All right, here we go. I'm taking leadership here. We're moving on. So objectification of women is the exact opposite of what you do when you define a woman by just her gender alone. And sexual objectification is where you define her purely as a sexual being. And we see this a lot on the covers of certain manga, which will go unnamed, but it's covers where the woman, instead of striking a pose that connotes what kind of character she is, it's more about showing off her boobs and her butt. So, usually you see a little bit of gender discrepancy, whereas the guy will assume a pose that somehow shows who he is. So, like the thoughtful guy might, be thinking of, doing a Charles Xavier, or the strong guy will be striking a pose of strength, and the women tend to be more like, they tend to be a little bit more like that. There are exceptions as part of it, but anime and manga being the visual medium it is, you like to see nice things, and Pretty Girls is a nice thing. So in fiction, this woman tends to be, or this kind of character tends to be someone who has no aspirations beyond just like being a lady. She wants to be pretty, she wants to have purses, she wants to have lots of babies and stay at home, never have a career, never have a hobby. If your female character doesn't have a hobby, rethink that. She should have something that, occupies her time. If men, a typical example of men objectifying women is when they refer to women by the kind of clothing that is specific to women, or a body part that is specific to ladies as well. Yeah? Really? Yeah. The more you know. Okay. Those things that have the reproductive organs that we like. Yay! Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about fan service and objectification and how they are different. So fan service is when you take a character and you put her in a sexy situation for the benefit of the typically adolescent viewer. So I don't know if you can tell, but that is Yoko from Gurren Lagann, and that's her butt. So objectification is different from fan service, whereas objectification is just defining the woman as a woman and nothing else, and just posing her all the time. Fan service is where that's the difference. So fan service is okay. We're going to talk about that. Thank you so much. So he just said that fan service can distract from the personality. It definitely can. It can also, it undermines it. Yeah. Yes. So women who are like spies, but they're wearing heels, you know, like that kind of thing. So fan service it's typically a woman who is the subject of fan service, and that usually appeals mostly to the male audience and to a small percentage of the female audience, and that can really alienate women who don't want to see that kind of thing. And particularly at an anime convention where it's half girls, half boys here, you could be kind of alienating half of your target audience. So that's why, too much fan service can, do the opposite of what you want. It can also add pressure to women who feel like they have to have the perfect body. And in the men's movement, this is a big topic too, where men are constantly bombarded with the image of the chiseled abs and the perfect, Thor-like body. You guys have seen Thor, right? Yeah. So Captain America's okay too. So, but that kind of image can really contribute to men feeling uncomfortable and dissatisfied with their bodies as well. So it kind of goes both ways, and it can really cheapen the material. It really takes me out of the story when we have to have a scene where a girl's talking to some guy and all you can see is her side boob. So the comment is that, it seems like there's a lot of it. So again, it's a visual medium, and why waste having the ability to see the characters if you're not going to make them visually interesting, which can include, clothing and hairstyle, but also body. We'll talk about panty flashes later. Yeah, real quick. I have no idea. I have not played Bayonetta. Did I skip it? I'm so sorry. So Bayonetta, I really can't speak to that, but hopefully by the end of this panel, maybe you can. I'm gonna let you guys know if you like fan service, that's okay. Okay, you're allowed to like it. That's okay. You're not in trouble. Yeah, you're kind of supposed to like it. So, okay, let's talk about Lolicon, serious stuff. So Lolicon is the sexualization of girls who aren't old enough to consent to sex. And it's also the term used by the adult consumer of this product. So, history lesson. Lolita was a book, and it's about a 30-something, maybe 40-something man who is sexually obsessed with a 12-year-old girl. So she's been getting her period for 6 months, and boy, is he hot for her. So this is a problem because girls all over the world are pressured into growing up before they're ready, pretty much. Abercrombie & Fitch sold a push-up bra to 7-year-olds. It's a triangle bikini top push-up bra for swimming, I should say. I'm sorry, not a bra. And Dakota Fanning was 17 when she posed for an Oh Lola perfume, and she got the perfume bottle right in her crotch. And Dakota Fanning looks like she's 14. That ad was banned in the UK. There was another series of photos from that photo shoot that they did go ahead and use that was less sexually explicit, but still, it's like the message is there. No matter how developed you are, you're not developed enough. No matter how soon you start growing, you're not growing soon enough. It's awful for ladies. Yeah, go ahead.
The only thing is anime reflects that, where Lolicon is actually, they appreciate more the younger women's body, and even like older women, or there's this thing called the Loli Baba, where you have the woman who's like a million years old, and she looks like a 12-year-old, and where the 12-year-old body is preferred to the more mature body.
Yeah, so just to repeat your comment, so there's a appreciation, are you saying, in Japanese culture for a younger,
Lolicon is actually,
but not so much sexualization of it? Because I understand that Lolicon is vast, which includes the Gothic Lolita fashion movement and there's lots of...
that's very separate.
Okay, very separate.
Lolita and Lolicon always get confused because they draw their names from the same book. But
Yeah.
they actually, Lolita, the style, has very little, actually nothing to do with the book, or the sort of Lolicon like, it's just all that because it's, I guess Japanese people figure, oh, Loli is named for a little girl, or they look like little girls. But actually, the Lolita movement was in order to be more modern in your clothing, more. That's why they would wear the high top, big dresses, to actually hide their clothes.
Okay. Okay. So then to think like a horny bride, would that be because they're doing it to be teased? Okay. Okay. The quite the opposite. Okay. So I'm talking about.
Lolita also tends to turn off guys. So the girls who dress as Lolita tend to do it for themselves.
Okay. So Lolita tends to be by girls for girls. Okay. So Lolicon, as defined as sexualization of young girls, this is a damaging and alienating kind of product. So it's a major turnoff, even when used sparingly as a joke. It can, I walked around in the dealer's hall and there's some posters and some of those body pillows of girls who have like no breasts, and it's like, you're gonna cuddle with that, really? It's kind of weird, and it tells girls and men who are feeling this way that kind of attraction is okay, and sexual contact with a child is abuse. The child cannot consent to the act, and it really betrays the trust of the child. So if kids have a problem, they go to an adult. If anything is wrong, adults are their one-stop shop for help, assistance, guidance, anything like that. And there's a massive betrayal of trust when an adult takes advantage, of a child's frustration. And I personally, this is me on my soapbox, I really don't like the fact that we have Lolicon. I don't like that Lolita applies. I think it's not as like gratuitously dangerous as outright abuse is, but it's always that whispering at the cultural level, like you should be younger, you should be more adult than you actually are ready to be. That's what bothers me. Yeah, in the back.
I'm not sure how much my history is correct, but isn't it that like to a certain extent, as further back in history go, they like marriage and stuff goes younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
Does that also?
So the comment is about what about history where marriages were occurred at younger ages. That's absolutely true. That was back in the day when you were dead at 35. So of course, when you got your first period or when you were 14, you were married, and that was more out of necessity. Your brain, just the frontal cortex, which is where you keep your personality and a lot of your ability to function at a social level, that does not really get done developing until some studies suggest as late as mid-20s, but most studies agree it's roughly in the 18 to 20 age range. So that's just your brain. Female body, at least, like when you get your first period, that doesn't mean you're automatically a woman. Your body will continue to grow and change, and you really don't. It's tough because your body is constantly in flux, but your true adult form you may not really necessarily see until your mid-20s or until you're about 30. And for women, I'm speaking for women. For men, being an adult has more to do with your shoulder to hip ratio more body mass than seminars. Yes. It has more to do with having an adult frame, adult bone structure, and same thing goes with the frontal lobe development. You're not really done growing in front of your head until 18, 20, or even 25. So that's why in our modern kind of setting we have this pushed back age of consent, because really at 14 when you would have gotten married 15 years ago, cognitively speaking you're half baked. So no offense, 14-year-olds, I love you guys. Yeah.
Special characteristics for lack of means. Because on one hand, you got depictions of really ridiculously proportioned female characters, and then on the other hand, instead of something modest, you make the other end something completely undeveloped that looks like style. So it seems like you get a lot of that. Very few characters that are moderate at that.
So the comment is about the different shapes and sizes of women's bodies, and how a woman with larger, I'm guessing, boobs and butts can be seen as more adult than someone who is younger. So that is in visual medium. That kind of signal is very common. If you've heard of Hartman and Hips, that's where the animator Bush Hartman tried to have mom figures, or characters in shows who are moms have huge hips. Rather than increase the breast size because breasts are incredibly sexual, instead just give her, massive hips, and that's the visual cue that she's feeling. So I'm going to have to blaze through this. I realize that we're all having a good conversation. So let's talk about shades of gray. So these are places where the influence of Lolicon, you can see it in kind of the mainstream anime and manga. So the Desai Ryoiki, the absolute zone. So this is the measurement of the amount of skin that is showing between the bottom of the girl's skirt and the top of her sock. And it comes in 4 grades, A, B, C, and D. And so when, at the beginning of Lucky Star and the introduction of that, when she says about 3 centimeters, that's what she's talking about, that amount of skin showing. And it's about showing, just enough to entice the viewer, but it also has the added bonus that her sock or her stockings don't go all the way up. So there's the, a panty flash is possible. Just little things like that. So here is the panty flash. Let's talk about this. So this is a very specific kind of fan service, and it's about showing as much detail without actually showing any genitals. The panties tend to be very, detailed, very intricate, lots of lace on them, and it's underwear on women tends to flatten. It tends to kind of obscure those details. And in animation, or at least in some shows and comics, that kind of flattening effect is totally gone. So it's about showing as much as you can and getting away with it, pretty much. I did it wrong. Blonde moment, sorry. Here we go. So magical girl shows can be great because there's a lot of female characters and they all play off of each other, pretty well if it's a well-written show. On the other hand, the lavish animation sequences when they transform can be a little weird. Like, why are we watching a girl's clothing change for half a minute? And it depends really on the show that you're watching. So some shows that the clothing changing animated sequence can be done pretty nicely, where it's like you're showing her power in this new form. And other shows it's more about posing the girl, doing all these 360 spins and zooming in and zooming out. So I wish I had my notes because I could tell you what character this is. But she's 9. I thought that she might have been older because of her hourglass shape. I was really surprised to learn she's 9. Because if you've ever seen like a 9-year-old in a swimsuit, she looks like a tube. She looks like a pool noodle. But she was, and she was totally naked before the screen cap, except for the stocking. And it was amazing. Kind of So let's talk about some good examples and some bad examples of female characters. Okay, one thing before we go on. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! I love it so hard. But Mai is not a very good female character because her deck is female-themed, and in the show, for those of you unaware, for the two of you who don't know, your deck, your playing deck, can be customized, and it is a reflection of you. So Yugi, the protagonist, he has a lot of magician kind of things in his deck, and he has some things that rely on luck, I suppose, or destiny, the heart of the cards, if you will. Another character has like an occult-themed deck. One guy, like, can't go without dragons for a second. But my deck is all like girl stuff. Harpy Feather Duster is one of her cards. It's just like lady things. And it's like all that the show can say about her is like, yes, she's a lady, so therefore she has a lady deck. Why can't she have the book deck? Why can't she have the, I don't know. So that's the joke in Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge when Joey keeps saying, I agree with those boobs. That's what they're getting at there. So, okay, I'm gonna catch it. I know. So sorry. I like this show too. I hate the things I love. No, so Misa has some problems. She's not perfect, but the biggest problem with her is that she tends to be an active doormat for life. She kind of throws herself at light and says, whatever you want, I want. When a lady has, aspirations that are closely attached to a guy, that can be an abusive or unhealthy relationship. Same thing goes with the inverse of that. If a guy is doing everything he can because he has no will of his own and he just listens to his girlfriend, that's probably not a good relationship to be in. It can only end poorly. So for that reason, I don't quite like Misa. I think that there were some other female characters in that show who were interesting, and then they died. So I'm actually going to not take any more questions until the very end because I want to cover everything. Okay. Yes. So this is me speaking personally. I don't like panty and stocking with garter belts. I don't like them because they are defined literally by the clothing that women wear. I've read that it's meant to be a sex comedy, but I didn't find it to be very insightful. Sex comedies tend to be kind of insightful, and they tend to say something about the relationships between men and women. Honestly, there have been episodes of Adventure Time that have more to say about the relationship between men and women than this show. I think garter belt looks like a gollywog, like a really outdated way to portray a black person, and for that reason, I don't like this show either. If you like it, if you like pretty girls, you're allowed. You're gonna be okay. So let's talk about some good female characters. So Faye Valentine from Cowboy Bebop is pretty much one of my favorite female characters ever. She's got a really rich backstory. Her motivations are very clear, they're very personal, and who she shares those motivations with and when has a lot to do with her personality, and she's good to look at, isn't she, gentlemen? So, Kagome and Sando from Inuyasha. Kagome, Inuyasha. Yes. Kagome. So, I like these girls. They also have a lot of aspiration behind them. Sando especially, she's in a real tough place with her zombie brother. And she's like, do I save him? Do I kill him? And she seems to be prepared to do either, depending on the situation. Which, that's tough, man. That is hard. And that's, emotional strength as much as physical strength is what makes a good female character. Okay, gender, this is the show you should look at. Avatar was exceptionally good for a kids show. I hate to call it a kids show, but it was really well. I mean, even the cabbage guy, like. And there is this great balance between, you know, femininity and masculine traits with these characters. So if you are trying to write your own fiction, I would look to them. Okay, does anyone know what this is?
I heard it.
Yay! Woohoo! One guy in the back. Okay, so I'm a hipster and I love this before all you guys did. This is Cybersix. This is a great show. It's floating around on YouTube. You should definitely check it out. Her romance with the male lead was very well done, very well executed. I don't think I've seen anything quite that honest and not mature, but just real in hardly any shows at all. You should definitely go check out Cybersix. Okay, so some non-anime good female characters. So Princess Bubblegum and Marceline are pretty good from Adventure Time. I am a huge French fan, and I love Olivia and Astrid and Nina Sharp. I like her too. They're all these characters have very clear motivations and aspirations, and they aren't all necessarily physically strong, but they are strong in their ways. So now that you know all this, hopefully you can make informed decisions on the kind of product that you consume. When you make your own manga, you can keep this in mind. Say like, maybe I'll pose her in a really sexy, you know, pose next chapter, you know, or just do it when it's really appropriate to pose her. And you can also be conscientious about adult issues that you are going to be facing. You are either facing them now, or you will be facing them soon. So some great resources for you guys. Take classes in high school and college. Take them on story writing. Take them on gender issues. Read up on the men's movement. Read up on feminism. The Hero with 1,000 Faces is all about the hero's journey and talks about the monomyth. Really great resource for constructive stories. Take classes on culture, and some great informal resources. Mr. Plinkett's movie reviews. If you have no patience to read A Hero with 1,000 Faces, watch his reviews on Star Wars and Star Trek. You will learn a lot. It's basically movie making 101, and a lot of it is storytelling. Go watch Extra Credits on Penny Arcade. TV Tropes is a great way to flesh out your story. So if you have the bones of your monomyth set up, you can go to TV Tropes for some really great ideas, or just to like waste hours of your life, you know, either one. Dr. Nerdlove wrote a really good article about nerds and male privilege, and he wrote a follow-up article to that. So I think I'm almost out of time, so I recommend that you go read that. Dr. Nerdlove is a guy, and he writes about it from you know, his male perspective. So it's nice to hear, you know, a male perspective every now and then. And I believe that is, yeah. Well, feminism can seem very overwhelming if it's all written by women. So it's nice to hear it from men every now and then. So if you guys, okay, I don't know how much time have we got?
5 minutes.
Are we done?
You're over here. You was running out of time. I was just interested.
Okay, I'll take as many questions as I can before I get the boot. Okay?
You have 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes, yeah. Okay, question about how to write it for a good female character. Yes, sir.
I have to find the kind of interesting. Would you be posting your slideshow online somewhere?
Slideshow online.
Can you get access to the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
So I plan to post this